Nigeria is set aside as a day to celebrate members of the armed forces. Coincidentally, it's also the day 53 years ago that marked the end of a bitter war that has left Nigeria in tatters. Has Nigeria as a country done enough to immortalize members of the armed forces who died serving the country? How are their families faring after their demise? What about the ones still living? Have we done enough to repay the sacrifices that they have had to give to ensure the unity of the country is intact? And how about the continuous terrorist attacks all across the country in recent times? Would it be enough, or should eligible voters be worried as we get set for the 2023 general elections? Will these attacks end anytime soon? And is it going to affect voter apathy? Well, the Nigerian Armed Forces Remembrance Day on one hand and security issues as it relates to the upcoming 2023 general elections will get us talking on the show this evening. It's my cue to welcome you to another edition of the Newsroom. Now, the Newsroom is a weekly show we bring to you every Monday where we take a critical look at some of the big stories that we have reported or that have taken place over the course of the last 7 days. Ufuoma Egbamuno is my name. Welcome once again to the show. Remember, you can watch us on Facebook and on our YouTube pages. Facebook, it's Nigeria Info 993. YouTube, it is Nigeria Info FM. All right. I did tell you my name, but in case you were wondering again, Ufuoma Egbamuno is my name. And let's start the conversations today by taking a look at, of course, yesterday, January the 15th. It was the 2023 Remembrance Day, and President Muhammadu Buhari celebrated his very last one as Commander-in-Chief of Nigeria's Armed Forces. He will exit power on May the 29th this year, God willing and God keeping all of us alive. Now, he says Nigeria should continue to honor and celebrate the armed forces as the pride of the country, and I totally agree. In his message, he asked business enterprises to consider appreciating the sacrifice of members of the armed forces, whether serving or retired, in form of discounts and rebates for goods and services. I think I also agree. He also saluted members of the armed forces for their unparalleled patriotism, courage, and loyalty amongst despite all the daunting challenges. Meanwhile, presidential candidates in the 2023 general elections also sent their goodwill messages. Now, for the APC candidate Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, he says he praised the armed forces for being what he calls a great shield fighting against any threat to national security. In his words, let me quote Bola Tinubu now. He says, "It is praiseworthy that despite the many threats and challenges faced by the nation at different junctures of our history, the armed forces have remained a great shield that has consistently fought against any threat to national security and peaceful coexistence. I want to assure our veterans and those in active service that if elected president, I will join hands with them in ensuring that Nigeria defeats every threat to her nationhood." Great promise, I would say. On the other hand, for the Labour Party and its presidential candidate Peter Obi, he made an emotional tribute and urged Nigerians to avoid situations that will lead to another war. Let me quote Peter Obi. He says, "Today," that was yesterday, "marks 53 years since the Civil War formally ended. Let us accept that the war has truly ended. To try to continue to fight the Civil War today, after 53 years, will be a great disservice to Nigeria and Nigerians, particularly our heroes who diligently labored to secure and unite us." Again, I agree. Atiku Abubakar, also of the PDP, praised the armed forces for their supreme sacrifice to keep Nigerians safe. and Rabi Kwankwaso of the New Nigeria People's Party, who by the way, was one-time Minister of Defense, saluted the gallantry, the courage, the sacrifice of the men and women of the armed forces. He insists that it's important to honor the memory of our distinguished veterans. Again, I agree. Well, we've got a former director of the DSS who will be joining us on the show right now. His name is Mike Ejiofor, and it's my cue to welcome our guest to the conversation this evening. A very good evening to you, sir, and welcome to the newsroom.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm sure you must have heard my intro and preambles talking about members of the armed forces.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to ask you, let's start from there. Do you think as a nation we have done enough for our armed forces?
Well, I wouldn't say we've done enough for our armed forces because of the sacrifices that we're making in seeing that Nigeria remains one indivisible country. We have done well, but I believe too that there are chances for doing better than what we are doing in view of the prevailing circumstances in terms of funding for our security agencies. So that's why I said that in view of the prevailing circumstance, it is not only security, the general downturn in all the sectors of the economy because of the scarce resources, and they are trying within the available resources, like I've said. So they've done well, and they need to encourage them and just encourage them as people who have made a lot of sacrifices to see that we stay united as a country. And this was further buttressed by the Chief of Defense Staff, who also ascertained that the military should not be involved in politics. They are trying all they can do to lead the stage for the police, which is primarily charged with maintenance of internal security.
Okay, so let me take it up from where you just stopped. The fact that the Chief of Defense Staff talked about the fact that the armed forces has absolutely no business with politicking. Yesterday, January 15th, also marks the end of the Civil War, 53 years after, and one could argue that it started as a result of another event that took place on the 15th of January 1966, the first military coup. Now, the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, in his statement yesterday, says we should stop fighting the Civil War today because he feels like there are still some Nigerians who are still fighting the war, whether we want to accept it or not. How would you react to that assertion that some Nigerians today are still fighting the Civil War 53 years after it formally ended?
Well, I think Peter Obi was right on spot on that very particular issue. You can see that when the war ended, you had the 3 R's, rehabilitation and all what have you. But you can see that Igbos have not been fully rehabilitated or integrated into the main political scheme of affairs in the country. So that is why Nigerians too should be encouraged to stop these fights, ethnic, religious crises in the country. And I believe that this election that is coming up will address some of these issues. And you see the way we are divided. If you look at the candidates, you have a northern candidate, in quote now, I'm not saying that there are presidential candidates of the various political parties. Mm. Then you have in the southeast, who will be representing the southeast. Then you have Ashiwaju representing the southwest. Everybody holding to his catchment areas. Mm. And that is not good for our own development and integration. No matter where you come from, although we have not matured to that extent that anybody can come up and, look at you, look at your merit, look at your integrity, look at your personality before you're voted for. But everybody is working on its own catchment areas. The Atiku Abubakar will tell them not to vote for him because he's from the north. Asiwaju will say it's his turn, or the turn of the Yoruba. While Obi remains, somehow neutral as a national candidate, but people still look at him as an Igbo candidate, even though he's not accepted in his own geopolitical zone.
You could argue that all the leading candidates have got that issue of acceptance too from their areas. There are quite a number of northerners who are opposed to Atiku Abubakar. There are southwesterners, Yorubas, who are opposed to Asiwaju, just the same way there are Igbos who are opposed to Peter Obi.
The people who are opposed to all those candidates, like in the north and the southwest, they are not significant, But the fact remains that a lot of people argue that Obi has no structure, and the matter is not even being held by people who are also not supporting him. You see what is going on. You can see the activities of the unknown government making the election, almost doubtful.
We're actually coming to that. That's the other part of our conversation. But quickly, before we get to the terrorist attacks all across the country and how it might impact the general elections in about a month's time, let's quickly just wrap up on this armed forces issue. My late dad was a customs officer. Of course, maybe not in the same mode, I would say, as say an army or naval officer, but part of the same security structure. And growing up, living in barracks or living amongst security personnel, I've come to understand one thing. Sometimes it feels like members of the armed forces are in a world of their own, so to speak. Like they are isolated. Some of the family members find it extremely difficult to get their benefits when they retire or maybe they die in active service. Never mind all of the lip service that you hear government officials talking about how they've done this, they've done that. I know, in fact, as I speak, I still have some hundreds of thousands of naira that I'm yet to collect. My dad's my late dad's gratuities, because of the bottlenecks that people have to go through to get all of these things. What do you think can be done better to ensure that the families they leave behind don't get to suffer while they have given almost all of their all to the country?
You see, that is the problem. I was watching a program this afternoon. I think it was either TVC or Arise, one of Hidebe, who is definitely a friend, lamenting.
I saw that show too.
Lamenting how the retired servicemen are not treated well. You have to beg people who dedicated their life, did everything for the maintenance of sustenance of the country. Do they have to come and beg to be paid? You see, we rely on individuals, not institutions. If they have the institutional framework to take care of these things, you are retired, you have paid your money, but they go, you see some of them in the process have died, some cannot even feed, they cannot afford medicals, and you still encourage people, and that's why it's very difficult for people now to enlist in the military and the police. But as a last resort, that they don't have what to do, or out of frustration, you see people joining. It's not supposed to be. They need patriotic service personnel who will volunteer to come and serve their country, not joining the service out of frustration or nothing to do. And that gives account to what's seemingly happening now. That some of them, they just say they want to join the military or the police to make money or make ends meet. And it's corrupt acts everywhere. So it's a problem. They need to be paid, having served and paid all spent all their life in service of the nation. They need to be taken care of and rewarded.
All right, fair play to also give kudos where it's due. If there's one area you would also want to give credit to the present administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, you would want to say he's done, quite a few noble things for members of this security personnel, especially for the police. But of course, that will be my cue to move on, to the other subject, which is what we're going to talk about.
No. You see, that's what I talk of institutional framework. The problem did not start with this administration. If there had been an institutional framework that would take care of this, it didn't start from Buhari's administration.
True.
But he has also tried to address some of the issues. And those issues cannot be addressed holistically because of lack of funds. So I'm not putting the blame on the present administration.
Yeah. All right. Good that we actually cleared that up. So let's talk about security and whether or not it might have an impact on 2023. It was a sad weekend for the family of Catholic priest Isaac Achi and the Catholic Church after the priest was burnt to death by terrorists in his parish out there in Niger State. The unfortunate incident occurred 11 years after the same man survived the Christmas Day bomb attack out there in Suleja near Niger State. If you remember, on the 25th of December 2011. Now, in Katsina, we're not so sure of the numbers. Eyewitnesses say about 25. The police say 7, 8. We're not so sure. But what we are sure of is that people woke up yesterday morning, decided to go to church, and then terrorists came and abducted them. The Senior Special Assistant to Governor Aminu Masari on Christian Affairs, Ishaya Jarrao, says that security personnel are on top of the situation. They're trying to ensure that they rescue all the victims. In Imo State, over the weekend, it was not great news coming from that angle, where the spokesperson of the coalition of United Political Parties, Ikenga Ugochinyere, was attacked. His house, things were burnt. 1 or 2 persons were killed. Just today, we heard, of INEC office somewhere in Enugu being attacked. I think that attack was yesterday. We hear they killed 1 police officer. And of course, 2 Saturdays ago, a terrorist attacked, a train station. Thankfully, I think we have just 2 persons who are still in the kidnap den. The security personnel, kudos to them. They've tried to rescue as many of these persons as possible. But my question to you would be: it's 39 days to elections, and we're getting all of these pockets of violence everywhere. North, south, southwest, southeast. How do you think all of this will play as we head into the elections?
Well, it's honestly quite disturbing that what we have just reeled out. Personally, life is sacred. No life will be lost. But I am personally touched by the ablaze burning of the Catholic priest. I'm a Roman Catholic, and I think, as far as I'm concerned, you said I didn't even link him up to the issue of Mandala, that he has continued to be under attack. And I don't know. This tale of woes all over the country is quite disturbing, So you see the house of Ikenga Ugochinyere that was raised down, abductions in Katsina and all this. I'm worried, not because only recently, about 3 months ago, the president gave directives to the security agencies to ensure that this is brought, and they discover that there was a check on all this. There was a decline in incidents, but this upsurge is quite disturbing. I don't know what has given rise to this. And I think
some will suggest, or some have alleged, that Maybe some politicians are behind some of these attacks.
Yeah, sure. But you see, there are political issues. But if you think of the burning of the priest, the Catholic priest, and the kidnapping, those are not political issues.
Okay.
Like the issue of Ugo Chinyere, yes, you can consider that one political. Burning of INEC offices, yes, you can also classify those as political. But there's no justification, no reason for all these kidnappings, killing of Christians and all this. I believe that their aim is to instigate crisis. We are, just like you rightly said, partly political, instigate crisis so that Christians will react. And these bandits, most of them also profess this Islamic religion, even though it's not approved by the general Islamic religion, like Boko Haram and all this. They intend to instigate, members of the public, both religious sect, both Islam and Christianity, for them to go against each other and possibly cause mayhem and unrest in the country. So, partially you are right, but some of them are purely political, and some of these ones, you can't place them, either they are political or religious.
So, do you think, as we prepare for the general election starting in about a month's time, just over a month's time, I should say, do you think this would have any effect on the turnout of voters? Because, to be honest, you can feel the pulse of the nation. You can feel that there are quite a number of Nigerians who possibly did not vote in 2015 and in 2019, but they want to come out and vote this time because many Nigerians are beginning to realize how much power they hold, But do you think that all of these security challenges could in any way dampen their morale?
Well, somehow it will, but I don't think it's going to have a major effect. That people should not come out to vote. People should normally come out to vote. After all, you can see when you have these rallies, people still defy all the security challenges to come out for rallies. So if they can come out in large numbers for rallies, I don't see why people should not come out to vote. So we should even encourage the people to come out and vote, because if you sit down and you don't vote, a few people will determine your fate. So we need to come out. I agree, it might affect the turnout, especially in the southeast. If you notice, most people in the southeast don't even go home again. But in other areas, I think they will come out. I'm very, very optimistic. My only worry, like I said in one of my interviews recently, I predicted there's going to be upsurging in political violence, in case of attacks. And I still maintain that as we approach the election, we're still going to have a series of attacks on opponents, because the reason is very obvious why they are going to violence now. With this latest improvement in our electoral process, you are no longer going to have time to carry ballot boxes or put stock ballot boxes. So when you don't have all this, the only alternative is to disrupt the process. And INEC has given assurance that they will go ahead with the election. Where election is disrupted, they will cancel it. So I think the frustration of politicians, coupled with the fact that vote buying has almost become almost impossible now. Although, Nigerian politicians, the more you try to amend some of the problems, the more they are looking for ways
to create more.
So I'm sure they're also working to ensure that they undermine the process. But I can assure you it's going to be a little more difficult than what used to be on ground before.
Okay. Finally, on this voting issues, how best do you think the government can handle it?
I like I said before, the president has given a directive. The Inspector General of Police has given assurance. INEC has given assurance. But we cannot leave it for the security agencies alone. Citizens, we as citizens have roles to play by alerting the security agencies, giving information to them to see how this thing can be nipped in the bud. If you leave them for the security agencies, there is sufficient. I was watching a social media video where a prominent person from the southeast, the convoy alone with the soldiers, police, this is very, very sad. It's saddening that an individual can have that kind of,
number of security personnel.
Escort, one individual. Then how do you handle so nobody feels safe? People don't longer travel. So I believe that, like it's always said, you also quoted in your intro that the special advisor to the governor in Katsina said they're on top of the situation. Every time they're on top of the situation, but things are always going wrong. So I don't know if they're under the situation, what would have happened, So, but we'll continue to encourage our security agencies and pray to God to save us in this country.
Okay, just before I let you go, there's absolutely no way I will have someone of your caliber on Nigeria Info this evening, and I will not ask you this question. But it actually was not supposed to be on our menu, but I'm going to go ahead anyways. What is this cat and mouse? Let me call it that. Currently going on between allegedly the DSS and the central bank governor. Femi Falana yesterday on a TV program said that the DSS has quietly, that's his words, declared the governor of the central bank wanted. Apparently, we hear he's not in the country, and here's me wondering. Make this make sense to me, Mr. Ejiofor, because I don't understand how this is allegedly happening on one hand, and supposedly the man who is supposed to dictate the fiscal policies of the country is not in the country, somewhere, and we don't know where he is.
I'm a lawyer. I don't speculate.
Okay.
I don't have the details of what you are asking. I don't know. Some people have said that Emetele is in the country. Some people are saying he's not in the country. So that was the realm of speculation. And I don't have the details between the cat and mouse, like you said, between the SSS and the central bank governor. So the only person who can answer that question is either the central bank governor or his spokesperson, or the SSS and the spokesperson. I don't have the...
Okay, I will let you be with your diplomatic answer. I will let you be, but I would want to thank you very, very much for taking our time to join us on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was of course the former DSS director, Mike Ejiofor, is also a lawyer. We've got a couple of minutes left on the show. Let me use that to feel your pulse and get to hear what you have to say about Nigeria's armed forces. Of course, yesterday was Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and I quite liked what the president said, about business enterprises giving rebates to security personnel. And there's a particular airline, I do not want to mention names, they did not pay me for that. That every time I fly with them, they always call military personnel to come in first before every other person. I think that's a wonderful gesture. Should more business enterprises be doing more? I would like to know. 0700 993 993 993. Want to talk about that, or you want to talk about the security challenges ahead of the elections? Let's talk. Hello, good evening. Oh dear, Emmanuel's village people have actually come. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, madam.
Good evening to you.
Lucky Lola from Magboro.
Welcome, Lucky.
Yes, our soldiers, they sacrifice everything to protect, this nation, and the government can't even provide all that they needed. That's a shame. And I don't want to believe those saying Nigeria wasn't right for independence. even the home of our president, chief security of this nation, was not even safe. It's not even safe. May God just help us. Then to our fallen heroes, I pray God continue to be with their family.
Amen. Thank you very much, Lucky. We appreciate your thoughts. Let's take another call. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the newsroom.
Good evening, Ufuoma.
Good evening to you.
This is John.
Welcome.
Yes, Ufuoma, we thank God for our military. Yes, and we thank God for our nation too and the citizenry. You see, I want to disagree with the first caller. No matter what, this is our nation. We don't have any other country. It is not only the government that should cater for the military men or even the police. Citizens on their own. When you drive past a traffic warden who has been under the sun from morning till night, if it's 1,000 naira, 500 naira, take. You encourage him. We know the government is not doing enough, but you, the citizens, what have you been doing? And that is why we say, what is your contribution to nation building? You understand?
Yeah.
Now, apart from that, let us come to the insecurity level. You see, for me, we caused this whole insecurity by ourselves. Why? Because when criminals do one thing, politicians will brand them Fulani herdsmen. What do you call them?
Unknown gunmen.
No, Mr. Ufuoma, look, these people, they use Fulani herdsmen. You understand? Why brand a tribe? A whole tribe? Are you telling me there are no Christians? They are all Muslims?
Very good question.
But good people among them?
Very good question. We would have to...
Tiny people causing problem, and you begin to brand the whole tribe. It's not good.
I agree with you. But very good, points you actually raised. Time not so much on our side again. I'd like to use the remaining couple of minutes we have on the show, to talk about something that I felt really strongly about. I was quite impressed with the comments coming from, the Labour Party presidential candidate when he, talked about in his statement yesterday, asking if we are still fighting the civil war 53 years after. And honestly, I think some of us are, which is quite sad, Even to make matters worse, those of us who are young, in our 20s and our 30s, because of some of the stories we've heard, some of the narratives, that have been thrown at us, we've run with those stories and run with those narratives, and we see persons from tribe A or tribe B or tribe C in a totally different light than ought to be. So someone from the southeast sees maybe a Yoruba person as a betrayer. Same way the Yoruba person sees the Igbo man. Same way, you see the Hausa Fulani and you just tag everybody there as headsmen. No, they are not. And I think to a large extent, as individuals, we should learn to tolerate one another and go away from some of these narratives, that have been that we've been told over the years. Time will not permit me to. In fact, there's over the last 2 days, there's been this conversation about the 1966 coup. It's been largely tagged a coup about one tribe trying to decimate another. It's always a surprise when we've had so many coups in the country, but only one particular one is tagged a tribal coup. But again, it boils down to some of the narratives we've been told by our uncles, by our parents. But as we head to the 2023 general elections, I think this is a time for us to, have some form of reflection. Think about some of these things. Think about some of the things you see or some of the things you've heard. Think about how you relate with your neighbor who's from another tribe, and not just equate everybody with the same brush or the same tag. Well, kudos to the producers of the show today, especially Precious Nnenna Okon and, of course, Emmanuel Onwoka, who's sitting by my side here. And a special kudos to, of course, Tunde, who's going ahead with the technical input and ensuring that you get to watch us live on our social media platform. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. It's been a wonderful edition of the Newsroom. I will definitely be back again next week, Monday, for another edition. But just before that, I'll be back with Femi and the gang tomorrow evening on Game On. And this Sunday, well, my music show makes a debut. You should look forward to that one. So Sunday evening from 9 p.m., Rewind will make its debut. Until then, have yourselves a wonderful evening. Take care.
Everyday news break.
The Nigerian Communications Commission has ordered mobile network operators
Shaping our present and the future.
Don't arrest me. You said it don't block anything.
The vast majority of men and women of the police force are hardworking and diligent in performing their duties.
Policies and its makers.
I have been crying out. What is there in our time now is that the cost of government is too much.
Community and the dwellers.
Stop playing the ostrich. I came here now and the officers are saying I cannot exercise my rights.
We bring them all to you. The news on Nigeria Info. Top of the hour, every hour. Nigeria Info News. Let's talk. Talk.